Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by Brigadier General Amir Aviv. General, what can you share with us about what's happening in the war right now?
Well, I think that Moshe, the general feeling is that nothing is happening. I think that the Israeli society, I don't know, it feels outside of Israel, like things are stuck, they're not moving, everybody's waiting to see what's happening. And I think that what's happening is that the government really, really, really wanted a hostage deal. And it didn't happen. They thought that, we'll win against Iran, we'll conquer 75% of Gaza, this will amount huge pressure. We killed almost all the leadership of Hamas inside Gaza, and it didn't happen. They don't want a hostage deal. And I think that the reasons are obvious. There is this starvation campaign globally. They see inside the Israeli society, the media, the left-wing generals that now published a video, calling to stop the war, as if they didn't do enough damage, with everything they did in the last 30 years. And then you have Commanders for Israel Security that published a letter to President Trump on Jerusalem Post to stop the war. In Gaza, there is not much Hamas leadership left. The decision-making is done in Qatar. So there are many reasons why there is no hostage deal. And I think that, the government now is reaching the point where they need to take a decision. What's next? Where do we go from here? And they need to take a decision regarding the hostages. How do they liberate them? And they need to take a decision where the war is going and what scenario do they want to choose from here onwards. And I've said it again and again, the decision-making now is not about military logic. It's about vision. It's about what Israel really wants in Gaza in the long term. We want relocation. Do we want to annex areas? Do we want a military government occupation for a while, or we want to avoid that and stay on the 75%, 80%, perimeter and do an attrition war on the remaining areas without taking full control of the Gazan people. So there are big dilemmas. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. There are different options that have been discussed in the cabinet, and we are all expecting and waiting for the government to take a decision. Where this is going, what's going to happen. And while this is going on, the chief of staff says, look, until you take a decision, I want to send, the reserve, as many soldiers as possible home. I don't want them to wait and continue operating without any clear mission. So the army is continuing to clear the 75%, doing a very good job, continuing to attack also in the 25%. But now we need to take big decisions, Moshe.
Now, General, this potential drawdown of the reservists in Gaza, does that affect the army's ability to move forward? Meaning, if the government says we're taking 100% of Gaza, will there be a scenario where, the reservists were sent home, we've lost ground, and we have to pick up lost territory? Or this is, as you're saying, just a technical issue of sending them home, and it won't really affect anything in the big picture?
No, we're not losing territory. We're controlling the 75%. But the army presented plans for every scenario. The government asked, if we need to take the whole 25%, what does it mean? The army said it will take us 2 months. We'll conquer everything. Then it will take us maybe a year or two to clean all this area, to really dismantle all the terror infrastructure. But to conquer the area shouldn't take more than 2 months. And the army has the plans and is ready to execute them. It can also have plans to conquer part of the area, let's say the city of Gaza. And also a plan to surround the remaining area and do an attrition war. But what they really, the army and the Shin Bet need to focus on is how to release the hostages. And I said it again and again and again, and I'll say it once again. The most safe way to do it without a hostage deal is the US demanding the extradition of Hamas leadership in Qatar. The president holds the key to release all the hostages if he puts the pressure on Qatar and Egypt and demands the extradition of Hamas leadership outside of Gaza. You have to understand, no real leadership in Gaza. They are taking the decision, but they are puppets of Egypt and Qatar and Turkey. So it's really putting the pressure on Qatar and Egypt and Turkey if needed, and arresting them. And this will create the leverage to bring the hostages. To me, it's sad that this is not happening, because this is really a game changer that could bring the hostages safely. But without that, we'll have to go in. And I must say, we're 10 minutes away from every single hostage. Gaza is really, really small. And when you look at this 75%, it's minutes away from our hostages. It's really taking a decision, a brave decision. We're going in, we're surrounding these specific areas where the hostages are held. We're bringing our top units and the unit that has an expertise in negotiations of this kind, and we negotiate with the specific kidnappers, and not, with Qatar or Egypt or all these options. And where we have an opportunity to do it militarily, we do it militarily. I mean, first and foremost, talking about the 30 hostages who are not alive. They are not in danger of being killed, they are not alive. We can go in and bring them. Now, the IDF can maneuver anywhere in Gaza, anywhere. Any battalion of the IDF can go in any area in Gaza and maneuver without too much problems. So we can reach any point. So we really need to get out of this situation where we're stuck and we're not proactive and we're not doing what we need to do. We need to go in and get the job done. Yes, it's dangerous, it's challenging, but I want to believe that when we were really, really 100% focused on this mission, the whole Shin Bet, the whole army, all our special operations, all our intelligence is focused on one big mission. We always show the ingenuity and creativity needed to get the job done. And this is a moment like that. We really need to focus on that and get the job done.
General, in the very beginning of this war, Israel set goals, one of which was to destroy Hamas. That has not yet been accomplished. You're presenting right now a plan of how to make that happen, and it's not yet happening. What is the reason the government is stalling? Do they not have a plan and they set a goal without a way to get to that goal? Or is this stalling because they're working on a plan and we're just waiting for it to come to fruition?
So until now, they really, really tried to get the hostage deal. They wanted this hostage deal. And it's not a very good hostage deal. It has a lot of downsides, but also we would have gotten half of the hostages. But it's not working. We're not managing to have this hostage deal. And now they need to take a decision. When you have to take big decisions like that, you need to plan. You need to think it through. You need to coordinate it very carefully with the US, because now the decision-making is dramatic. This is not just about conquering areas and pushing the Gazans to another area. This is now about military occupation. This is now about a completely different way to deal with rescuing the hostages. It's a different scenario and requires very careful planning and thinking what we want to do. And we're operating in a very, very, very hostile environment internationally. And also, unfortunately, in some parts of the Israeli society, media and so on. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister really needs to take in consideration everything: the economy, the reservists, the international community, the US, the legal staff, and so on, and take a decision to do the right thing. And we need to do the right thing of Israel. In this regard, at the moment, most of the pressure, especially the international pressure, simply need to do the right thing. There's a famous phrase from the Bible, עם לבדד ישכון ובגויים לא יתחשב. At the end of the day, we're a nation by ourselves, and we have to know when not to take in consideration what the world thinks, but do the right thing for us. It's not that we're giving up הסברה and explaining things and so on, but we need to do the right thing for us. In the long term, this will pay off.
There were reports last week that President Trump saw pictures of the starving Gazans, and that potentially soured the Israel-US relationship. Do you think there's any truth to that, that because of that PR propaganda war about the starvation in Gaza, the US-Israel relationship is not in the place it needs to be to move forward on the war?
No, I think the relationship is very, very close. We're fully coordinated. We had Witkoff on the ground, seeing things inside Gaza, or visiting these sites of distribution of aid. I think that President Trump saw the pictures of our hostages. The only people who are starved in Gaza are our hostages, not the Gazans. And I think that President Trump has a very, very strong sense of connection to reality and understanding what's going on. There is continuous talk between the Prime Minister and the President, and Dermer, who is talking to all the relevant people. And they are planning together the next steps. And, you know, I saw it throughout the war. We're like all the time moving from mania to depression, you know. Like one moment we're all excited, the pagers exploding, and you know, massive attacks and amazing things. A minute later, we're all depressed, and you know, and reality is not here and not there. It's somewhere in the middle, and it's understandable that people, you know, feel nothing is happening, looks terrible, we're not doing anything. But it's not the reality. Things are dynamic, plans are being made. Decision making will be taken, and there will be a moment where we will see things moving forward, and then probably once again we move from being depressed to, you know, being excited about the amazing things that Israel can do. But I think that one way or another we're moving towards the defining moment of the war. And in this defining moment, the forces calling for surrender, for retreat, for giving up, for, you know, stopping the war and so on are getting stronger. We have to disregard these voices, this weakness, and really focus on the missions ahead, and are very, very clear what we need to do.
You mentioned these former military leaders who reached out to President Trump with that letter. How reflective are they of Israeli society? Are people here in Israel listening to what those people are saying?
I think that people in Israel mostly listen to us. I think that we are witnessing, especially during the war, it started before, but especially now, a generational change. We see this all the you know, old school generals that have really, really detached from profession, from basic Zionism, from common sense, and deal mostly with petty politics, you know, really just about how to overthrow the government, disregarding completely the reality of the war, and not making sense, I mean, professionally, you know. And people are fed up of this, you know, kind of people, especially when they really, really adopt completely our enemy's narrative, accusing us of, you know, starving the Gazans, accusing us from conducting a political war, accusing Israel really of, you know, killing children and so on, like our worst enemies. And this is generals. It's unbelievable. You know, Moshe, when I was in the School of Combat Engineers, and we had the officers course, I always said to the cadets, look, an officer is for life. This is a code you need to uphold all your life. You never stop being an officer. And it seems to me, you know, they forgot their officers. everything was counted. The responsibility to really set an example to Israelis and to the Jewish people. We are the officers of Israel, and the officers of Israel have a responsibility really to uphold our values, our Jewish Zionist values, to set an example, to be professional, not to be, political, not bring other agendas, and always really represent Israel the best way. They did the video that was published yesterday, terrible video, really accusing Israel of atrocities and starvation and calling to stop the war and so on. And these are former chief of staffs and Shin Bet and so on. And today I get, I'm interviewed a lot in the BBC and so on. So today one of the BBC guys, he sent me a message, can you give me the number of this general and this general, all the list of the generals, that are going against Israel. So obviously they want to, they want to interview them, and they are doing really a terrible thing to Israel, undermining us. And the people of Israel are not going to forget that. I'm not going to forget, and I think this is really, in this war, this generation is stepping down. Israelis are not going to accept anymore this kind of officers, and are going to look up to officers who set an example, or strong Jews and Zionists to support, meaningful service, who really focus on winning and not undermining state of Israel.
And by the way, if you look up this letter and the video they put out, and all you have to do is look at the pictures of those generals. They're from a different generation. I mean, they look like they're in their 80s, maybe 90s. It's not reflective, as you're saying, of the younger, even seasoned generals leading Israel. So let me ask you a question. If we can just double down for a second on what the holdup right now in Gaza is. Is it exclusively an issue with the hostages, that Israel is not sure how to maneuver forward because it's a risk to the hostages? Or are there broader ideological differences in terms of, should we be controlling all that area? What should we do with the Gazan population? Where specifically is the holdup right now?
So I think it's on both issues. It's a complex issue with the hostages, mainly because of the campaigns that are going on. And at the end of the day, the Prime Minister will have to really, look in the eyes of the nation and say, look, we did our best. We tried to have another hostage deal with other prices. Hamas is not agreeing to this hostage deal. And now we need to go in and get our boys and girls. And yes, we know it's dangerous, but this is what needs to be done. We have to go in and do the job. He doesn't have to say it before. He can say it, while we're doing or after we're doing the operation. But obviously, he needs to instruct the army to go in and bring the hostages. And the other thing is really, what do we want? I mean, one possibility is saying to the army, conquer the rest 25%. We are imposing, a military control of the Gaza Strip, and we'll clean out everything, all the terror infrastructure. And this is one option. Another option is the suggestion the army gave to surround this remaining area and do a war of attrition, and not conquer it, not control the Gazans, but really make them stay in this small area of 25% or 20%, and there attack constantly the remaining forces of Hamas, do raids going in and out, and dismantling them until they surrender. This will take a bit of time, but it will save many lives of Israeli soldiers, and also we won't require so many reserve units, and also not require military occupation. It's not an easy decision. I don't know. It's a very complicated decision to decide to occupy the West 25 and have 2 million Gazans under our control, or to do a war of attrition. And this connects to the long-term vision. Do we want to annex areas or not? I mean, what price these guys are going to pay for what they did to us, So if you want to take areas and annex them. So you might take in consideration, yeah, maybe we should, conquer the city of Gaza and so on. But on the other hand, you are controlling 75% of Gaza. You can annex that. That's a lot. And then the question of relocation: are we relocating them or not? Are we coordinated? Other countries that will receive them. So you need to really look at the whole picture, and this is now what the cabinet is doing. I asked General Gershon Cohen, what would you suggest? Which plan would you do? And he gave me, I think, the right answer that I felt also. He said, I don't have enough information to take the decision, meaning it's not black and white. This is so complicated, this issue, that without having the really full picture of all things that need to be taken in consideration, it's very hard to take a decision. And there is no right or wrong decision. All options that the cabinet is considering are good options, are possible options. Each option has its advantages, but also disadvantages. And they're all going to bring Israel at the end of the day to win the war. So if there was an option that undermines the goals of war, we would say, no, this is not an option. But nobody is talking about undermining the goals of war. There is 100% alignment between the government, the army, the Shin Bet, that the war needs to be won decisively. We need to bring all the hostages. We need to destroy Hamas. We need to set the terms that never again there will be a terror army. How to do it? There are several ways to do it, and all things need to be considered, and they'll take a decision. And I'm hoping they'll take the right decision.
And it's important just to note, for those unfamiliar, Major General Gershon Cohen is no softy. He's an incredibly accomplished war hero here in Israel. General, let me ask you one final question. A big thank you to all of our viewers and supporters who are tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it. And thank you, of course, to everyone who sends in all of the questions to really help guide these conversations. General, last question about world anti-Semitism. You have said many a times that there are different vectors of this war, one of which is the campaign against Israel and the Jews around the world. So what are your thoughts right now about what's happening in France, what's happening in the UK and even Canada, and how Israel should be responding?
I think that when this war will be over and will secure Israel in the long term, and especially talking about the enemies around us, Israel will have two big challenges. One is dealing with internal security, with Israeli Arabs and Palestinians in Judah and Samaria that are still armed and might pose a danger, the grab of land and everything that's going on inside the land of Israel. So now we're focused on what's going on around us. But we really have to focus on what's going on inside Israel. And the other thing is we really have to focus on securing the Jews around the world. I'm always so optimistic about the future of Israel and really the great era that will be here the day after this war. I'm very pessimistic when it comes to anti-Semitism. I believe it will continue to grow exponentially. And Israel needs to get ready for massive aliyah. At the beginning, at the inception of the State of Israel, bringing the Jews to Israel was the biggest issue, kibbutz galuyot, we say in Hebrew. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that this is the number one mission of the State of Israel, to bring the Jews. And I think that the issue of aliyah and creating the best terms for the Jews to come and live in Israel is going to be really a main focus in the coming years. And also securing the communities in the diaspora. It's going to be a very big challenge, and Israel really needs to see it as a world campaign and treat it as such. So on one hand, we'll have to deal with securing the communities. On the other hand, there will be massive aliyah to Israel. And we'll see it, I think, we are seeing it, and we'll see it more and more from Europe. But eventually, and unfortunately, I think we'll see it also from the US. It's happening as we speak. It's going to grow exponentially throughout the years. This is the reality we need to face.
Brigadier General Amir Aviv, thank you so much for sharing all of this and for your continued leadership throughout this war. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, take care, everyone.